Okay, we're going to try this again. How is everyone? Oh, hopefully you could jump on and see me and hear me. We're going to give this a go and I'll send the report over. Every time it's something new, it's something different, but definitely jump on and say hi. Hopefully you're all still in the feed. It looks like most of you guys are. Okay, Melanie, good, good. Oh, good. Well, who knows? I shut it down, started it again, and it's working now. Let's just be happy for that. How is everyone? Oh my goodness. Well, I do love this event. It's always a fun one, just the chance to talk about play and how valuable it is in the overall process as you go from start to finish on a page, right? So valuable. And it's always just fun to kind of talk about it, talk about some hopefully key tips in how you can approach it, answer any questions you guys might have. Definitely, this is kind of like a open mic, so to speak. So if you struggle with something, like, don't hold back. Actually, I love when people tell me, I really have this kind of issue, because then it gets our mind working in some solutions and how we can encourage and help each other in some of our maybe more bottlenecks, so to speak, when we sit down to scrapbook. Ultimately, we want it to be, when we sit down to scrapbook, to feel like we can count on a method to help us to get started, right? We don't want to find ourselves backtracking, so to speak, to staring at an empty page. I remember those days. I have no desire to ever go back to those days where I just feel myself, spinning like that lovely, irritating internet spin that we often get to experience. I don't like that feeling. So we're going to talk about that, design a few things, of course, with this month's featured set. And like I said, if you guys have questions, throw them in the chat. I will do my best to keep an eye on them. Looks like everything is working. We're seeing, we're hearing. Awesome. Okay, so of course, initially when I sit down to scrapbook, right, we're going to go from that beginning to coming up with designs. Pull out background sheets. Your background sheets make such a huge difference on how your page ends up. So definitely, just making sure that the colors are what you want for your pictures and all of those kind of pre-choices before you actually get down to creating. Now, we're going to do the play to creating process, not necessarily the picking out pictures and paper, which we recommend you do previous to this precious time when you sit down to create something. So pull out those background sheets. Like I said, there have been times when I sit down to scrapbook, and the reason why I emphasize these background sheets, they make such a huge difference in your finished results, is because there have been times that I will be literally in the middle of my progress on my page. And I'm like, something's still not sitting right. And then I ask myself a few questions. Okay, those questions are, one, do I need to take a look at, always my background sheet is the first thing that I start to question. Usually on the other end of the design options is something like, oh, do I want to add another layer to give it a little bit more substance? Those two common scenarios are pretty much usually the culprit one way or another, in as far as like this internal, intuition, so to speak, that we're like, something's missing. What unfortunately sometimes happens is that we start to say, like, it's us, or we're not just, we're just not feeling it, or we're not being creative enough, or whatever those negative emotions sometimes can creep in. Honestly, that's why I usually start. It's like the computer. Every time I get frustrated with the computer, I still continue to get frustrated with the computer, and then I'm like, turn it off, turn it back on, and it works. It's always this one thing that we always kind of keep going past it, when we just should change out the background papers, for example. Turn off the computer and turn it back on. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, this month's featured sets, I will say, are really fun. It's widgets, Cascade Trails, and rings. All of these have so much design potential in and of themselves, right? Like just playing with them in and of themselves. But this combination, I will say, I'm really looking forward to seeing how this combination inspires us in our design layout. Now, of course, if you're not familiar or still new to kiwilane, what we do every month is we highlight two to four sets. Sometimes it's two, sometimes it's three, sometimes it's four. But really beyond four, you're just kind of adding a little bit of more complexity to your initial sit down. So here's what I do. I pull out the featured sets in this case, and this limits my design options. So if you're also feeling like you get overwhelmed when you sit down because you're like, because there is a lot of options, because there's lots of design options when you really start to play. But the first thing to really take a look at is limiting your options. And so in this case, if that's something that you feel often, then focusing on the featured sets and the suggestions we give month to month could help you, eliminate a little bit of that overwhelm. And then as you go along in your design process, which we're going to get here in a moment, that's where I find, where I might pull in some more cherry picking from other sets, depending on layers and themes that I'm trying to achieve. Okay. Now we are going to throw in, we always, if for those club members, the club set, the new club set, has so much inspiration in of itself, but these featured sets are designed to enhance the club sets. So they are, all of this is considered of each other and also of the club set alone. So it enhances it as far as extending the theme, so to speak, that you might find yourself scrapbooking, but it also really just allows you to feel inspired in various ways. So just know that that is always a great enhancer overall. And those are what we consider when we give our suggestions on these sets, is because we're giving them based off of, experience as far as how they coordinate together. Okay, so I'm going to jump right in. I'm going to pull out featured set Cascade here, and we are just going to play, right? And this is really what this is event about, is being able to sit down and get started. You often hear that, whatever it is that you might be creating, that getting started is the hardest part, right? And that's so true. It really is true. But at the same time, part of that is because we get into our own heads. And so really by allowing yourself to sit and play with the designs, okay, you are allowing yourself to get out of your own head too and just explore. Just think of it as exploration. You're going to explore and come up with some awesome ideas. Okay, so this is the trails. If you guys haven't played with trails before, they're not like our signature borders, right? So our signature borders, which the boogie set actually has a really fun, right? The A, B side, one down the middle. Trails, a little bit different. So definitely still have a pairing. So you saw when I was laying them out, I was trying to pair them up with what side coordinates. And for the most part, they're like puzzle pieces. They may not be exact, but they're pretty close. All right, so just know that. And you'll want to put them, one on the left side is usually the A and the right side is usually the B. In some cases on older sets, that may not be true, but in this case, that is true. And the left is A and the right is B in that pairing. So in these ones, I just want to point this out because when you are playing with any type of A-B, it is valuable to know the design function of it so that you can utilize that in your designing. So in this case, we're going to put one on this side and we're going to put one on this side. All right. And of course, when we trace them out, I'll go ahead and just jump to that instead of like the one up the middle. Again, if you've used the signature borders, you know that it's one cut up the middle will give you your two pieces. In the case of the trails, you're going to trace it 3 times, left, middle, right, and you will need to cut it the 3 times to get the wave, but you will have one for each side in that. So that balancing and that structure to your layout will come naturally with these trails as well as if you were just using a border. I will also say with trails, okay, so much to share, guys, so much to share. You could also incorporate them as borders, okay? In this case, I want to throw them in trails first. I wish I would have pulled out a sample now that I'm thinking about it. Sometimes I forget until I start playing and all these ideas come back. But what I mean by, tracing it out as a border, let's see here. on your paper, you could absolutely take a trail, for example, and just trace it once down the middle and do a straight cut. And then you would clean that edge up like a border, a signature border. If you want to keep it open-ending, flowing like a trail, let me move that over. Those are really fun because what it does is it always opens up, in my mind, this kind of intertwining, really kind of showing like that very much path feel that it gives. So when it comes to layering, just, it's not necessarily always layers on top that you can achieve in your design, right? Like a bigger flower, smaller flower, like so you're going upwards with your layers. Sometimes it's more about layering when you tuck and intertwine. So just keep that type of layering approach because it's so fun. It's so much fun, okay? Love them. Actually, Cascade Trails is one of my go-tos as far as the trails because I just feel like it's so timeless in a way and also complementary across your designs. From here, of course, let me throw in another design. Let's pull in some from Widget. So again, Widget has this open kind of thing that screens. Maybe you pull that in and intertwine those through Cascade. Maybe you just layer it on top. But I love those little bit of effects. And anytime you see a cutout, naturally, it does kind of beg you to think outside of the box and how you use this. But any of these cutouts, whether it's rings, this gear, this kind of photo file design, you don't have to cut out the middles, right? If we wanted this to be a circle, not a ring, we would not cut out the middle. Now, I will not go over cutting tips here, but I will tell you, if you go to the website, under rings, there's videos, there's galleries for this product. If you go, same thing with Widget, there's videos, there's galleries. So definitely make sure to check those out. For example, like how to cut out the rings, you'll want to check that video out, okay? Check it out. And I do, like, again, I'm looking at this thinking, oh, that's really, really fun. So that's kind of using the cascades as that initial inspiration as you kind of sit down and start to play to create, right? And you can come from, which I've talked about before, because this is all about creating, right? Creating your page. You can come from the first approach, which is create a frame, add your photos. The swap of that is add your photos, add your accents. We're gonna go over both. I feel like I want to this time, so we're gonna go over both. And it's again something we've talked about, but you know, consistency is key in regards to really building up the confidence and allowing yourself to play. So in this case, like, right, I've added, I could go in and add more layers, like easy enough. There's so many fun designs. Like I could add something like this, right? But usually when I get a general idea, you guys seen this a lot in lives, as far as a general frame like this, I like to then switch gears and go to my photos and then come back for details. Now, so that's come up with a frame design. This is what I mean by frame, whether it's top, bottom, left, right. Add your photos, add details. That's one approach. The opposite of that is add your photos, add in your frame elements to your photos, and then add your details. I switch from the two often. Just depends on, I guess, really where my headspace is that day. Or if I know that I have lots of photos and it's going to be more of a challenge. I hate to use the word challenge because really it's just a creative challenge, so to speak, but more of a desire and effort to get those photos in. Again, I'm gonna swap this here in a moment. Let's finish this design and I'll probably go back and approach it the other way just to make sure that that's as clear as possible. So this is again coming from the approach of we added a frame generally pretty quickly, and then we're going to place in our photos. If you know how many photos you want, like if you know you need to accomplish 8 photos, then of course my tip is always pull out 8 photos and start from there, right? let's just go ahead and say 8 is the number we're trying to reach. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, you could also easily throw in, just remember, you can go up on the borders. I will say, okay, again, key little tip here is I may cover a portion of a border, but for the most part, I highly recommend not covering all of your borders. Whether this is Cascade that you're using or one of a traditional border, if you have those incorporated into your design, which again, there have been layouts I don't use borders on. But for the most part, I do tend to use them, right? And the reason why is because they add so much movement to your page. They break up the straightness that your photos are already bringing to your design. And with that, they add that life to your page. They bring it to life because movement is life, right? I just quoted, what is it, Zombies, I think is what they said, movement is life, but it's true. Movement is life, and we're scrapbooking life memories. And so we want to add life to our pages. And so for me personally, this little bit of movement these borders or trails add to your page, you don't want to, and I'll show you what that may look like. I would not cover that all. Maybe a section, which you see here, but for the most part, I would recommend you keep that open-ended. So if you hear that, right, that little tip that I shared, oh wait, hold on, maybe I should try not to cover the border. I would challenge you to question that. If you find yourself covering your borders, then just play a little bit longer and move things around to see if there's another orientation that will allow you to still accomplish adding as many pictures as you want without losing all of the movement and detail that also adds to the overall aestheticness and mood that you're trying to relive and recreate with the memories that you're scrapbooking. Okay, so that's another little tip, always something that I want to share, of course, and point out. Now, along with that, you'll notice that if you're wanting to accomplish 5 or more pictures, you do need to be willing to trim down your pictures, whether that's to 4x4s, 3x3s, 3x4s, even a 4x4, 4x5 makes a huge difference in allowing some breathing room. Again, life, right? Your page needs to breathe. It needs to move. All of that stuff really contributes to, in my book, bringing those pictures back to life. Okay. So allowing breathing room around the space, but again, if you're wanting to add a lot of pictures, then be willing to crop them down. Okay, so be willing to crop them down. And sometimes people say, oh, I need to learn to take not so close pictures. And going forward, that is definitely good advice as well. Don't get so close on every picture, even if you're 4x6ing it. I typically, for whatever it's worth, I typically print 4x6s and then I trim them down. So sometimes I'll do 2 3x4s to 1 4x6 if I'm printing them from home, but otherwise I print, this was a 4x6 and I trimmed it down, right, to a 4x4 on this layout. Okay, so that's this approach, framing, adding photos, and then details, right? At this point, maybe it is we come in here and add a little cute arrow, something like that. Or, see, this is why it enhances your designs. You can go this approach with featured sets, or, hold on, I've got a lot of ors in my head here. Even down to like little details like this. See, that's what I'm talking about. Like, it's the little details that can go after you figure out a general frame and your photos. Or you could switch it up. That's where I was going. Let's say we don't want to do more of this like playful general, it could be boy or girl page really, but maybe we don't want to go that approach. Honestly, this could have been, depending on your paper, it could have been a travel page. It could have been, there's so many open-ended I have these so intertwined, I gotta untwine them. Approaches that even one concept design could have covered, right? It could have accommodated for. So let's go back to the bones. Let's say we take off any kind of details that maybe theme it, right? And now let's go a different approach. I'm going to pull in some from our Kiwi clubs here, and I'm going to go full on musical, right? So maybe we want to do more of a musical approach, which could easily be adjusted, you know, to kind of fit that means. You'll see here, I didn't add too much. I mean, definitely as I get going, I would stop here. I would not feel the need to figure out every single little detail. I would start by cutting out my strips or my trails, and then my other layers, trim my photos, add them. And then from there, I might be like, oh, well, what if it's really hard to tell until you get into the flow. And that's what's very benefit is just kickstarting you into the flow. But, maybe I'll doodle around those, or maybe I'll add some twine to give it a little texture, or maybe I'll, right? Those extra details. All right. Okay, how's everyone doing? We have questions? Are Cascade Trails in the vault? No, they shouldn't be. I mean, we're preaching them. They shouldn't be. You got me now questioning that, and I'm like, what? Now, before I go too much further, I did prep a little bit of a quick flash sale for you guys. It's also why it took me 2 minutes more to get on here. These ideas come randomly sometimes, which hopefully those of you that are watching live, use the coupon. I love kiwilane. We're in the month of February, right? And we want to, you could say $10 off a $50 order. So if you want these featured sets or anything else in the shop, check them out. Now, I will say that this coupon expires tomorrow at midnight Mountain Standard Time, okay, basically midnight. And with that said, this excludes pre-order items or subscriptions. So that's pretty standard on our coupons. But yeah, so Cascade, let me load more on my page just to make sure. We also have similar designs, right? You have Happy Trails is another trail feature. Oh gosh, I feel like there's just so much to share on these featured sets. So I'm trying to go as fast as I can. Oh, you found them. Okay, Melanie, good stuff. I just found it too. Totally thrilled there. All right, good stuff. All right. Hi, Susan. Was that a soccer layout you just showed? Would you mind showing it? Yes. This is a page that I created with this month's Kiwi Club. And this was a really fun design. Actually, there's a few other goals I think that would be beneficial. First, I'll actually show you how to recreate this and how easy it is to take a design and still play to create. Because play is all about visualizing your page, to help you speed up that design process. Then we'll also backtrack and I'll show you from the photos section, which I feel like this last event, if you haven't seen it, go check out some more of these events. Little things stick out each event, right? Each month we have just something else that stands out to us, or maybe we didn't quite hear the first time we saw a demo or something like that. But yeah, this is a really fun page. The kit in and of itself is naturally geared towards move to your own beat, more of those maybe school moments, or musical or concerts or band or things like that, which was hugely recommended as a suggestion in our reviews that we got from feedback from club members. And I will say it's such a fun kit in general. But of course I saw the red in the paper, which made me think of these pictures, and it works. This is also something super valuable to keep in mind, because I feel like as scrapbookers, especially if you've been scrapbooking for a long time, which I think many of you have, not only are we conditioned to do a lot of things in our own head, which is why the Play to Create system really tries to help you overcome that, And with that, also bring back a lot of the joy because it feels like play, and it should feel like play. Okay, when you sit down to scrapbook, it really should feel like play. But with that, we're also conditioned to like think about things like, oh, I need soccer paper to scrapbook soccer pictures. Like that's not always the case. It's fun when it aligns, and it's fun when it like helps to kind of, you know, set the stage, so to speak. But the other part of that is just really utilizing the colors and the patterns to complement your memories. Because for the most part, your memories do a lot of the talking for themselves. They're just looking for something to really highlight them, spotlight them, and capture them, of course, through your creative lens, right? This is all done through each of us, kind of our own style and our own creative lens, which adds to the personal and customization of your pages. So the reason why I mentioned customization is because, again, even if you take a design like this and you're like, oh, I want to scrap lift it, right? It still is your design. Like it could not come into existence unless you created your page. That's how I feel about that. So anytime someone's like, oh, I feel bad scrapbooking, I'm like, you shouldn't. Go for it. So with that said, easy. I love when I have a design that works. So like if this is something that, you know, you feel attracted to and you're like, oh, I want to try that, then honestly, right, you take those templates. Often we list the formula of what templates we used. You pull out those templates and you just start to say, okay, I'm going to put that there. This is just another really quick, easy to play with the design. It still is play for whatever it's worth because it allows you still to get out of your head and explore designs. And it's always surprising as you get going in any type of design, how you may adjust it, how you may, you know, get towards that finished design look with your own page that you're creating. All right. I just had those other templates out. What did I do with them? Oh, there it is. I do love this little smiley face. So fun. So again, I'm just kind of taking similar, of course, the elements that I see, which were the featured sets. This is super fun. You can place a photo inside the window or just trim a photo and place it on top. So either way approach that works. And then from there, you can see that too. So as club members, just, you know, again, and I know a lot of you guys already know this, but it's super beneficial to just keep that approach as far as play in mind. And it all leads to play. It should lead to play. It should feel like play. And just like Legos or building blocks, right? It really adds to it. So in this case, on this layout, I'll share that really fast. I did add the rings as a visual tool, right? So that's the left, right? But in this case, I just took a pen, just a fine point pen. If you're using a darker background, you might want to use white. If you're using a lighter background, you might want to use a color like black or gold or whatever works for you. And the way that works, basically, just really quickly, I'm not going to actually do it, but you take your pen and you just hold down your design. And if I know that it's going up into my border, right, it's like going to be hidden, then of course I just kind of move that border a little bit and go up just a little bit more past the edge. And then I trace, like so. If your pen is really wet, you might want to let it dry. That's from experience because it will bleed if you start to push it over and smear it, right? But once that's dry, or if you're using a pen that you feel confident in, then what you do is you just kind of move it again and then trace again. And then you move it again and you trace again. So that's all this is right here. And it's just another way to use this designer template in a fun way that maybe you don't have the paper, which is some cases when I go this approach, I don't have the paper. Like I'm using the last of scraps and I want to add something here to fill in the space so it doesn't feel so blank or something, right? And so I'll doodle. Or if you don't want so much thickness to be like attention, sometimes it is more about where your attention is going when you flow across your page. And that's just something I think everyone just kind of makes their own judgment call, but it is something I think is valuable to pay attention to, is what is distracting from your pictures, what is contributing to your pictures, and so forth. So in this case, I didn't want to use the paper. I was like, I want to save as much of this Kiwi Club paper for my next 2-page layouts that I want to accomplish with this kit, which then led to, oh, what if I doodle? And then I doodled, and then I was like, ooh, what if I take the stars, right? And just add some little details like that there. And then it becomes decorative, like almost a decorative element. So just know that as you're playing, of course, and then you can always finish the other side out. I will say on this layout, since I did pull it up, maybe this is just not too big a deal, but I loved how this flipping of this, I loved the 1/2 inch on the 1-inch strip here. That was so satisfying. It was just super satisfying. I just remember when I was like bumping up those borders next to each other, flipping one down, flipping one up, right? And I will say what's so fun about the Kiwi Club, this new border edition, is this big place where you can add this type of photos and things on top. But going back to what I said, where you're still keeping the movement part open, right? You're not covering that. So it just gives you a lot of a foundation to kind of add little elements and things on. So it's super fun. It's a fun one to add to the collection of designer templates. But yeah, just adding another, I pulled this one down. I actually pulled it up. So inch or strip here, and then a strip here to finish that off. So simple, so easy, but it was so satisfying. I don't know why. I remember it being so satisfying. Okay. So that is, of course, the other approach to playing. I'm kind of covering them all actually in this event. Why not? So the first one was being, framing photos, details. The next one being taking an exact layout and just kind of, adding in your designs, but still beneficial to getting that full game plan laid out, visualized, so that you can move on from the design focus to the trace cut, the creating part, right? So to speak. I mean, it's all part of the creating part. So this last focus, when you sit down to scrapbook, again, we have different approaches. If one of the approaches is not working for you, then try another one and see if that unlocks a little bit more freedom in how you sit down and start your page. And I will say again, sometimes it's just based off of mood. One night, I'm like, you know what? I actually do want to just create a page like the one that I see in a PDF or in the community, and again, scrap lift it, and that's okay. And sometimes I'm like, ooh, I'm really excited. Sometimes I'm really excited to use a border, and then I start with the border, then the pictures, and so forth. And then sometimes I'm just really excited to use all my pictures. I want to make sure that I'm incorporating as many pictures as I can. And so that might mean that you start with your photos because that's your top priority that you want to make sure you're accomplishing. So maybe you do something, right? In the last, well, this I guess was for Kiwi Club members, because we talk about photos and figuration in our planning events every month for club members. So if you haven't checked those out, go check out the replays on those events. We definitely talked about a go-to designs, one of them being like a photo lineup, which is kind of where I went through in my mind, but it doesn't have to be. It could be, again, let me pull out all my photos. And this is where I like to have, especially if you know that you love to venture off into many, many photos on your pages, then this is why I have too many photos in my stash, because they are super beneficial in helping you to achieve that. So it's among the sets that I often recommend having, doubling up on them. And it's always the set that Like, I've demoed a lot at expos and things. Many of you guys, you know, met us at expos, but I always love when we get a good friend group, right? And they're always like, oh, maybe you get a set and I get a set, and then we share it. I love when they kind of try to like say it quietly, like they don't want me to hear, because, you know, they're afraid to hurt my feelings or something. But I'm always like, yeah, that's a great idea. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. You should do that. Anyways, and so are you guys, is this going, did I just lose everyone? So then of course I always say, but the one thing I will tell you is I don't recommend sharing photos. And so, because there's such a great tool in the heavy lifting, so much, so helpful. All right, so then of course, as you go through that, let me try here for a moment and see if we can get reconnected. Did we get lose you guys? Okay, hopefully we are back. Okay. Well, hopefully, I don't know how much of that froze and how much of it was recording, unfortunately. So overall, this is the next approach that I was trying to really highlight is, of course, adding your photos. And right away, it gets to the bones of your layout, right? And then from here, well, let's just try a few different things. This design is very, very fun. I might have to shift that down, but that's okay. I'm willing to do that if you wanted to go without a direction, right? And I'm willing to do the same. So if I did an A-B, naturally, I would probably go here too. Now, before I get too far in this designing here, so again, probably move that up. So you could see it shifting just a little bit as you add in other things to your design, okay? That could be really cute, guys. That could be really cute. And already I'm like, okay, well, maybe I bring an arrow down, and you can even say, like, you want to pull that down? I don't know, I kind of like the clean lines. All right, well, maybe not. Maybe we go this direction and we put like a fun title there. That could be really cute. Like a really fun title there. And then, of course, depending on what you're trying to accomplish as far as the theme or event that you're scrapbooking, again, could be really fun. Depending, again, how many pictures you need, there's always opportunities to kind of tuck and layer. So fun. Do something like that. That. Again, allow open space. Don't feel like you have to fill all of these white spaces. You want it to breathe. Let it breathe, okay? And then on top of that, I don't know, that could just be really fun. I feel like it doesn't need much. If I wanted a layer, here's a really fun thing to do. I like taking half rings. So in this case, what I would plan, oh, this is fun. And you guys probably have seen this in our sample books because this is very common. What we'll do is we'll break up a border like this. So say that border is a pattern, but in this case, we might want to add a solid, which then I would cut like a red ring, a yellow ring, and break that up just a little bit. And then what you would do is when you cut the ring out, you cut it in half. And in this case, I would, let me see. Basically, I'm going to use the other size of this ring, but because for visual needs, but you could put one half over here and then you would put the other half like over there. Actually, let me stick to the same size. I don't have two rings. I thought I did have two rings, but I must have given one away. I think I did give my other version away. But we're going to go back and okay, you can't see this now because it's not half. Oh, where are we at on time, guys? I kind of feel like I want to show this because what you would end up doing if you did half rings is I would actually take this end and I can't do it right now because you can't, right? But once you cut it out of paper, I would tuck that right back up underneath this border and let that come out of the border and up through the photo. So fun. Okay. All right, so there's another quick design as far as options go as you play to create with your designer templates and get out of your head and have fun. Really, it's so fun. It really can be. Ultimately, like I said, I think the next paralyzing thing is because there are so many options that sometimes we're like, that can be overwhelming for some people, which I totally understand. I think the best advice I can give in that case is that just remember, and I've said this before, but just remember what you don't do on this page, you have many more pages to come that you can do the other ideas, the other options on. So I don't know if we get so concerned about like, you know, well, I love this idea and I love this idea and I love this idea. Just pick one and go with it. Because whatever you don't use on this one, you can try it on another layout. I guarantee there's going to be more layouts that you're going to want to create, right? And pictures to scrapbook, right? So just know that I don't know if that's helpful or not, but that's kind of my outlook on that in that case. Now let's say we do, okay, want to layer in trails. I just pulled out the same trail, but let's pull out a different one. Let's pull out this one. It's a little bit straighter. Layering trails with your borders is so much fun. Basically where you may have wanted a strip, right? Like say you want a strip or a strip there. Think of the trails as a replacement to strips, right? I could have done that on this layout easily. I should have maybe even done it. I did like the clean, I was going for the clean lines in this case. But yeah, easily could have been a trail in replace of that 1-inch strip I put on that specific layout. But again, if you're looking at the trails and you haven't added them to your collections, and not only do they work great with any type of borders, signature borders, they also work really great alone, like we shared before. Maybe you don't want as much movement or space taken up with more of that traditional border, right? Maybe you do want to just kind of stick towards more of a trail, a little bit softer, a little bit less going on. Again, sometimes that's based off of paper you're using too. If you're using not as, or maybe you don't have as much paper, trails are a great solution to still add the movement, but don't take as much paper up as far as cutting it out. And, or again, if you just kind of want it to be just a little bit subtler in your design, like so. You could even go back to the tracing of the rings. Add a little tracing there, add a little tracing there, and maybe over here too, tracing to kind of balance it. Okay guys, I threw a lot at you guys. I hope it was helpful. There was a lot, and I think that just shows how fun these featured sets are. They really just, again, bring a lot out of you if you are willing to play with them. And I know I could probably continue for hours just throwing around options. But for the most part, the principle and the method of allowing yourself to play is just such a great method to, you know, to depend on when you sit down to scrapbook and explore your design options from any approach, any way you approach that. And like I said, sometimes one approach, depending on my day or my mood, just doesn't quite work. And so I'll switch gears and say, okay, starting with my borders isn't working for me. I'm going to start with my photos this time and see where it takes me. Or if that's not working, I'm going to start with a sketch. I'm going to start with an idea, a layout, and see where that takes me. Just remember, of course, you wanting to explore so that you can get in that creative flow. And then through that creative flow, get to the next steps of allowing yourself to get lost in the moments of tracing and cutting, which is so beneficial to you, not only in the finished page that you're going to end up with, but also in mentally, emotionally. It allows you to have the sense of tangible play to get you into the flow state that is super beneficial. And overall, it allows you to add that blissfully simple experience to your scrapbooking, or at least that's the goal. That is the goal. Again, sometimes some layouts are more challenging than others. I have felt that. I have experienced that. And again, sometimes when I feel that, I just need to shift the approach, change my backgrounds, or adjust what I'm trying to accomplish. Usually one of those will usually do the trick. So, or maybe you're just tired and you need to step away. That happens too, and then come back. That happens too sometimes. All right, guys, don't forget my special little live treat for you guys. Hanging in there, hanging out with me. I appreciate you guys being here with me. A coupon. I love kiwilane. I love kiwilane. Use this coupon at checkout. Save $10 off a $50 order. If you haven't ordered these featured sets yet, I promise you're going to love them. If there's something else that you've been eyeing in the shop, check them out. And this does exclude pre-orders, though. Just know that any type of pre-order items that are currently in the shop, it excludes that. And it expires tomorrow. So it's just a quick little, like I said, sweet little treat. So if there's something that you've been eyeing, hopefully this helps a little bit. And it expires tomorrow at 11:59 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So basically a little over a day and a half. All right. You guys are the best. Again, thanks for being here. And I look forward to seeing your pages that you create. Of course, make sure to share them in the community. You always have a chance to win a $25 store credit. So make sure to check out the sketch challenge in the community to get all the details on that. All right, guys. All right. Take care. Bye now.